This is feedback on domain 5.3, ethical and legal practice. So before I get into the feedback of the work that you've done, I would like us to start on the requirements for domain 5.3 so that by the time that I give the feedback, you have an understanding as to the requirements in this domain. So this domain requires you to apply the law and ethics. It is really important that your primary activity in this domain is applying the law and ethics. It is not dispensing, it is not issuing Schedule 6, it is not identifying a fraudulent prescription. The primary activity is applying the law. So now we apply the law and ethics. It's important that you understand each domain. Starting with domain A, 5.3a, you are supposed to apply the Pharmacy Act. You're also supposed to apply the Medicines and Related Substance Control Act. Knowing this will then help you see what evidence you need to include. Behavioral statement B is about the scope of practice, so you need to include the most recent scope of practice. And please note, with the scope of practice, your scope of practice is not the same as that of a pharmacist post-basic. Next, behavioral statement D is where I see the most struggle with intents. Here you are supposed to first know the law. So here you're supposed to understand the recent law that you are applying in whatever activity, whatever evidence that you then include. And then you're supposed to provide evidence. Provide evidence on the application. So this shows that you know and then you apply. Behavioral statement D is about indemnity insurance. First, cite where this is from. In the GPP, it's GPP section 3.5. So you start by section 3.5 and then you include your certificate. Your certificate is not supposed to say student, it's supposed to say teacher. This is very important. On the ethics, you're supposed to first know it and then apply the ethics. So behavioral statement E is where we apply the ethics. So in this mind map, you get an idea as to what you are supposed to include in this. Okay, I will then add notes as to what evidence to include on this ones and how to include it depending on the activity that you're doing. Now, going into the first cycle, let's start with the requirements. So in the reflection, really important that you understand, the trigger is the why. Why are you doing this activity? What happened? What incident happened? It's like talking to a friend and your friend asks you, I hear that you want to conduct an activity in domain 5.3, but why? What happened? Who did what? What did you observe? So it's the why. And then the second one is the learning need. The learning need is based on the behavioral statements and the competency standards. So, what behavioral statement do you think you need to improve your knowledge on? And what competency standard, what are the requirements for this competency standard and competency standard, domain 5.3? Next, it's the goal that you have to achieve. So, identifying and including these three parts in your activity is really, really important. Let me just use a different color here so that by the time that we collect the evidence, it's easier. Okay, not black. Let's use yellow. Okay, go. So in the reflection, we'll be looking at these three things. So let's now look at the evidence that you are providing. As a pharmacist intern, dispensing prescription forms a large part of my daily practice in a community pharmacy. Thus, verifying the validity of prescriptions I encounter is of utmost importance, especially since we are located in the CPD, where some people can make use of fraudulent prescription. This has triggered my learning need so that I can apply relevant section of the Pharmacy Act, Medicines Act, or any applicable legislation that outlines what a valid prescription is. Learning this will equip me with the knowledge that will give me the confidence to evaluate prescriptions I encounter on a daily practice as required by law. This will teach me the laws and regulations which guide my professional practice. I hope to familiarize myself with the amendments to my scope of practice to ensure I still practice within my limitations. I hope this will help me adhere to ethical rules that govern my profession. So here, what I'm saying is, one, what you've done really well in this is stating um, a general activity or general requirements that interns, a general role that interns have when it comes to dispensing prescriptions. So this forms part of your trigger. I mean, not trigger, it forms part of the why you want to do the activity that you want to do. So this is the trigger statement that you have. Okay. And then in the trigger statement, you also state something that you would then need to provide evidence for. It seems like you want to apply the law, what constitutes a valid prescription, which is not sufficient enough for you to cover the whole behavioral statement requirements of the domain. For example, you're supposed to apply the law. It looks like you're going to apply the law for a valid prescription only. It is better to actually say that this has triggered my learning to learn and apply the relevant sections of the Pharmacy Act and Medicines Act or any applicable legislation which outlines what constitutes a valid prescription, how to dispense it, and the required steps or when a prescription needs to be presented for dispensing. So even though your trigger is this, don't centralize it on what a valid prescription is. Centralize it, look at the requirements of the domain. Yes, you're looking at the requirements of this, but the activity that you want to do is dispensing, but the overall activity is applying the law. So I would suggest you phrase it as this has triggered me to learn the laws and then know what constitutes a valid prescription and apply these principles when um, receiving a prescription, preparing it, and then dispensing it for a patient. So here you are focusing on the law, not just on the activity. Okay. And then the next thing that you then included here, this part. So the learning trigger that you have then went on to include the learning need that you've included here. And it is linked to, okay, sorry, you hope to familiarize yourself with the amendments to your scope of practice okay. And then the last part is, I hope this will help me adhere to ethical rules. Okay, so here, this is your learning need. But like I said, centralize or structure your learning needs such that it adheres to the competency standard. It adheres to the competency standard and it adheres to the behavioral statements that you want to address, which was okay, but just change the wording a bit. I will send you some videos so that you can see how I improved or how I applied these principles here. And then lastly, you stated that this will help you adhere to ethical and legal rules that govern my profession. This is okay. This is okay. And then this trigger is fine. Yeah, it's fine, but we'd have to see how it goes with the rest of your work. Next, let's start with the requirements. So first of all, you need to write the planning in the future tense. This is really important. It needs to be written in the future tense. You need to state the name of the resource that you're consulting, which includes the section and the page number if it's the law. You need to explain the reason for including this regulation that you're including, and then you're supposed to link with the behavioral statement that is addressing. So planning, future tense, 1, resources, 2, link with behavioral statement. Really, really important in everything that you do. Okay. And then let's go on to your work. In order to complete my learning need, I plan to go through Chapter 2 and 3 of the Pharmacy Act to familiarize myself with the requirements in terms of registration for a pharmacist intern. I will read GPP section to apply the scope of practice and my limitations. I will read the Pharmacy Act 2023 amendments to ensure I apply the current scope of practice. I will go through the Medicines Act, okay, particulars that must appear on a prescription to ensure I evaluate a valid prescription I receive in my daily practice as required by legislation. I will consult the GPP as well as the CLIC's Code of Conduct so that I can learn how to carry myself while working with patients as per law. I will read the GPP section 3.5 to familiarize myself with professional indemnity requirements. Okay. So in this activity, what you've done well is writing the work in future tense. So I say it's in future tense. You have also included the chapter of the laws that you then want to apply. the GPP and the page number, the Pharmacy Act 2023. Okay. You will go through the Medicines Act. These are the resources that you included. And I think there's a code of conduct that you included and 3.5 of the GPP. Okay. So planning. One, as is in future tense, the resources. Let's check what's missing with the resources. One, Chapter 2 and 3 of the Pharmacy Act. I don't think it's talking about registration requirement. Here, I believe you are referring to a regulation from the Pharmacy Act, a specific regulation that speaks about registration requirements. So actually citing Chapter 2 and 3 of the Pharmacy Act is incorrect. You need to state this specific regulation that you are applying. And then here, you need to link. So here you can say link or instead, sorry, okay, eraser here. So here you can add a SA because you are stating what you want to go, to attach. You are stating what it links to. You also need to include the page numbers. So next to it, you can say PG, it's 152, so include that. You want to familiarize with the registration expectation, so this is the reason for including the work, okay, legal requirements in terms of registration, so this is fine, okay. Then page 168 of the GPP, there's a rationale for why you want to use it, but here you need to also do what you did with the Pharmacy Act, by include behavioral statement, and then I think this is B, and then the page number is already included, so this is fine. Then next, you said, I will read the Pharmacy Act amendment regulations to ensure I apply the current scope of practice. So these amendments that you are talking about here, it is actually the specific regulation you're talking about is GNR 4733 of April 2024. The scope of practice was not published in 2023. So this means your evidence will be factually incorrect because it's not from 2023, but 2024. And then here, you need to state the specific regulations that you're talking about. This is regulation 5 and 6 that you want to apply. I would also suggest that you look at regulation 18. Regulation is what the scope of practice of an intern is now similar to. It is similar to a pharmacist technician. So including this regulation and stating how you use it would be of most importance to apply behavioral statement C. So here you would actually state that this is behavioral statement B, and then if you include regulation 13, then you would say that this is behavioral statement C. How you would apply regulation 13 is by dispensing. You can say that I dispense the medication since my scope of practice is similar to that of a pharmacist technician, so I apply the latest regulations in terms of dispensing medication. And then next, you are reading the Medicines and Related Substance Control Act. So here, it's not the actual Medicines and Related Substance Control Act. Here, you're speaking about Regulation 33. Regulation 33, yes, is about the particulars that must appear on a legal prescription to ensure that you evaluate and validate the prescription. Okay. And then consulting the GPP. Here in consulting the GPP, you were not really clear. You stated that it's the GPP and the code of conduct, at least so that you can know the specific code of conduct. But this specific code of conduct is actually, I think it's in section 1 of the GPP. It speaks specifically, I think the first part is the well-being of the patient. The second part, I'm not so sure, but the third part is about confidentiality. And 1.4 is about CPD. Okay. So this would then be linked to behavioral statement A. And then you will read the GPP section 3.5. Remember the page number to familiarize yourself with the professional indemnity required as registered practitioner. Okay. I have to check if word counts, but from this I think it complies. So then the main gap that I saw in your planning is, let me just space this right. Okay, it's link with behavioral statements, and then page number, inclusion, and yeah, I think that's okay. That's okay with the planning. So in the implementation, we'll do the same thing as well. We go through our checklist. You're supposed to write it in past tense. You're supposed to state what happened, when it happened. So this means the date. Where it happened means the place where it happened. How it happens means the steps that you took when completing what you were actually completing. I think if it was dispensing, but I think it's you were identifying fraudulent prescriptions, but let's stick with that. And then you state what happened and you link with the specific evidences. Here, you don't have to link with the behavioral statement. Here, not with behavioral statements. So you are not linking with behavioral statements, but you're linking with the evidence. Let's check. Okay. I will highlight the important things. On the 1st of February 2025, I registered as a pharmacist intern. Okay. This complies with legislation stipulated in the Pharmacy Act. To ensure I practice as per current legislation, I read the amendment legislation in the Pharmacy Act 2023 passed. Okay. I also read the GPP to learn of my scope of practice and what my limitations were. I read the Medicines Act 33, learn of the particulars that must appear on the third prescription on the 3rd of December 2025. I used this information to evaluate, validate, and dispense a prescription on the 26th of January 2026 as required by legislation. I recognize my limitation, thus worked as a pharmacist. I got professional insurance with VPS as required by registered personnel. I read the code of conduct in the GPP. Okay. So now I will highlight a few gaps that I am seeing here. You don't have to include this. This can be included in the actual evidence that you link. So here, when you link with the evidence, you can write linked with that specific behavior statement. We'll get to that. So writing this, actually, just this is sufficient. You don't have to include this here. Okay? And then you don't have to include this. You don't have to include these ones. Not relevant here. You will include it in the actual evidence that you include. So don't include these ones. And then here, what I'm saying that you also did well is you included the dates. So this is good. The dates that you stated here, this is also good. And this is when you did the activity. But what I'm seeing as gaps here is that instead of focusing on the implementation, this feels like a repetition of your planning. So you spend much of your time explaining the evidence and how you applied it, but not on the actual activity. On like it's like, okay, I did this, but how? You're not stating how you applied the evidence that you included. Okay. You are a registered pharmacist. We understand all of these things. You practice according to this, your limitations. You read, okay. You use the information to evaluate. So here it looks like your evidence that we want to see is this part. You're stating that you used it to evaluate. How? How did you do this? What did you check? You validated it. What does this mean? When was this prescription presented? According to Section 22A of the Medicines and Related Substance Control Act, the prescription is supposed to be presented for dispensing within 30 days. And then here, you are then stating that you actually dispensed the medication. Here, your learning need was you identifying fraudulent prescriptions, but you went on to dispense it. So I think stating this in your reflection that you want to identify fraudulent prescription and then dispense them accurately according to the law. Okay. Okay. Required. Okay. Looking under supervision. Okay. So your evidence is okay. It's okay. Page numbers are supposed to be included in the planning. How I would have applied this is on the 1st of February 2025, I registered as a pharmacist intern. This complies with the registration regulation stated in the Pharmacy Act. This regulation here, actually, I forgot to say, is regulation No, it's chapter 13. Chapter 13 of the actual act. So check this chapter, which is about this. Okay. To ensure that I practice according to this. Okay. And then from here, I would say that to ensure that I practice according to my scope of practice and identify its limitations, I went on to read GNR 4733 of April 2024, which taught me that the scope of practice of a pharmacist intern is the same as that of a is the same as that of a pharmacist technician. So this is until here. Then you read the Medicines and Related Substance Control Act. This is not Section 33. This is actually Regulation 33. So it's regulation. I hope you can see this. Regulation 33 for the particulars. Okay. All right. So here, this is where the magic happens. You start by saying, I use this to evaluate. I checked. You state the items that you check. Did you check when the prescription was presented? Did you check the patient's name? You just summarize what you did. So I use information to check I use this information in phase one of dispensing, where I checked against regulation 33. If the doctor had included 1, 2, 3, and if the prescription contained 1, 2, 3. In phase two of dispensing, so you state phase two of dispensing, I picked and labeled the medication, ensuring that the prescription, okay, so this is also in phase one. So this is in phase one. Okay. In phase two, you pick and label the medication, and in phase three, you counsel the patient. Did you counsel in the private counseling area, or was it semi-private? You state all of these things. Okay. And then here, mm, recognizing meditation and you're working under supervision. Okay, this is okay, but you link it with the planning log. I got professional insurance with PPS. Okay, this is okay. This is okay. But you are not stating how you applied the code of conduct here. What did you do to apply the code of conduct? Check the requirement for your code of conduct. Check the videos that I would link you with so that you know exactly what you're supposed to, sorry, to do, and then follow them accordingly. Okay. So evaluation. This is the checklist. You're supposed to state what was learned. This is in relation to the behavioral statement. It can also be in relation to the activity, but remember to link it to the law and to ethics, not just what you learned for dispensing alone. The impact is what you are now able to do, your confidence in dispensing, your confidence in applying alone. Here, we need to see an actual example. This is very important. A future learning need that is not related, you're not talking about dispensing here, you're going to talk about a future learning need in relation to the activity. So you check the competency standard and you check the behavioral statements, the requirements, not on dispensing. Let me repeat that. Not on dispensing, on the behavioral statements and the competency standard. Okay, so now let's read. Upon completing this learning need, I learned the importance of keeping up to date with, okay, excellent work, and ensuring that I comply with the most recent law that is governing the day-to-day practice, okay? It is important to ensure that I practice in a legal, ethical manner, okay? Okay, so here, and I will come back to this. I also learned of the importance of knowing. I can now evaluate, okay, impact on practice. Let me just change the color. And dispense a prescription as stipulated in the Medicines and Related Substance Control Act. I'm confident, okay, that I will be able to do with any prescription I come across. Okay, so let's see. Moving forward, I would like to learn how to handle explanatory medicine that is returned by patient to the pharmacy as per regulations. Okay. Okay. So from this, I can see that you stated what you learned. Let me start here. You stated what you learned. You stated the impact on how this has impacted you. And you also stated your future learning need. But this is not covered. There's no application. So the quality of, how you stated what you stated. Okay, you learned, you can now evaluate and dispense. So even now, okay, I can see you can evaluate. Okay, so here, how I would structure this is that you learned you learned the importance of keeping up to date with the latest regulations. This is fine. Okay. And then you also learned how to find current documents and ensure that I learn current amendments. What do you mean by this? So mention that where did you check them? I think this is the Falacia. Okay. Commercial publication. So end this in your publication. I can now evaluate and dispense a prescription as stipulated in the Medicines and Related Substances Control Act. So mention your scope here. Okay, mention that as stipulated in the Medicines and Related Substance Control Act, according to my scope of practice as a pharmacist. Mention your confidence. Moving forward, I would like to learn how to handle expired medication that is returned by patient to the pharmacy as per legislation. So here, it looks like you want to learn how to handle expired medication, not to learn off the law. So it's better stating that moving forward, I would like to learn and apply the laws related to handling scheduled returned medication. So it's restructuring how you write the first step. Okay. So here the application is not there. So you need to state how you apply what you learn. What did you do with this information? Make a specific example. The law is not only on dispensing. You can apply the law in compounding. You can apply the law in documentation. You can apply the law in issuing drugs. So in compounding, you state that I applied the law when compounding item 1, 2, 3, you know, and in documentation, you say that you applied the law by ensuring that documents are kept for 5 years. In issuing drugs, you can say maybe you issued medication to a different pharmacy or the laws that relate to this. Okay. To the evidence. Before we start, please note, if evidence, this is I call it an annotation checklist. This is really important. Annotation is one of the main reasons why interns fail their CPTs. I stress this. Annotation is very, very important. So this guide will help you know how to annotate your work. First of all, you give your evidence a title. Let's say that you call your evidence 1. 1. Or you say evidence A, not EVDA or A, full name, evidence 1 or evidence A, in numbering or alphabets. Yeah. And then 2, you state what this evidence is. What does this evidence show? You show application in that this evidence is this. I used it to do 1, 2, 3. And then you link with a specific behavioral statement. I repeat, link with a specific behavioral statement. Provide application on how you apply this work. So let's see how you did the work. So here, I'm just going to look at the structure of your work before anything. Okay. So here, evidence 1. Okay, you're stating this. You are stating what this shows. I take it this is application, and I see that this is the link with the behavioral statement. So because you've provided it like that, I see how you were applying the checklist that you did. Now let's check the quality of your annotation. Pharmacy Act number 53, Chapter 2. This is Chapter 2, but a specific regulation. This is a regulation, not a regulation, I mean, it's section 18 in the actual act. And government registration, I understood that I can't practice the pharmacy as an intern without being registered. Okay, you're stating what this says, but how did you apply it? I applied this legislation by registering as an intern before I can commence. Excellent work. This is good work. This one, good. Yeah, 100%. And then here, the checklist, LS2, proof of registration, what it shows. And then you are speaking about, you're linking with a specific behavioral statement. And I think this is application. Okay. This is the applications that you then apply. Okay. Let's check the annotation. This is this is issued by SABC to prove I'm registered as per regulation number 53. Okay. Section 13. Okay. Okay, okay. This is good. You're also linking it with behavioral statement A. So this evidence passes. It's good. Evidence 3. So this is evidence name, what it shows, link with the behavioral statement. And I take it this is the application part. So the structure of the evidence is okay. Let's see what this shows. Okay. Like I said, this was published in 19 April 2023, 2024, not 2023. Okay. The name of this regulation is, I think it's GNR. Okay. It's GNR 4733. Okay. Let's see your annotations. Kept, passed on. Okay. Understood. Substitution made for the purpose of education under supervision of a pharmacist. Okay. Under supervision. Okay. You dispense the medication. Remember what you're learning about. So actually it's dispensing. Okay. So here under supervision of a pharmacist, evaluated and dispensed, the pharmacist signed. So here, link with behavioral statement. Here, because the pharmacist was signing, this is, I think, about your scope of practice. Okay. So this is okay. I think this is okay. Yeah. Behavioral statement B and this can be B and C. You can link with behavioral statement B and C about your scope of practice, about the latest regulations. So let's moving on. Name of evidence, what it shows, link with behavioral statement, so 4, and then application, I believe. Okay. Application, link with behavioral statement. Let's check the quality of your annotation. I read the GDP section to familiarize with my scope of practice as a teacher. Okay. I understood that for the purpose of training. Okay. This highlights my limitation is that I cannot perform. Okay. All right. So good annotation, but here, explain application. Even if you said it, but explain it. Then you then state that I was supervised throughout the dispensing process. The pharmacist helped me perform a therapeutic evaluation. If you did perform a therapeutic evaluation, after picking and labeling, the pharmacist co-signed to show that I was actually supervised. And after dispensing, they also signed as well. Okay. This one is incorrect. The scope of practice. Yes. The scope of practice. Okay, no, I'm sorry. I thought you were including that of a post basic. This is actually correct. This case. Yeah. Dispensing. Okay. This is correct. So this is fine. So next one is the title of the evidence, what it shows, link with behavioral statement. So this is 4. And then here, I think it's application. So I'll check it for. Is it actual evidence? Yes. This is not section 33. This is regulation 33. The section is the actual act. The regulations is what is information that is derived from the act. I hope that makes sense. Okay. I learned of the important details that makes up a valid prescription. I evaluated the prescription according to regulation 33, not section 33, and dispense the medication. So here, how? How did you evaluate the prescription? What did you check in the prescription that you evaluated? How you do this is you look at the requirements. They say that every prescription shall be da 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 da. They include information of what the prescription is supposed to happen. Every prescription is signed. What's the prescription that you dispense signed? Every prescription must state these things. that are stated here. You don't have to include and explain all of them, but the patient name, which you did cover because of confidentiality, the dosage form. So you explain some of these things and include them. Was it a Schedule 6? If it was not a Schedule 6, then you explain, I think there's something, yes, Schedule 6. So all of these things are points that you could use in your application. For example, I checked that and I checked to see how I would annotate. Yes, I would say, I checked to see if the prescription was signed and written. I checked to see if the prescription was written or typed, and you can choose which one it was. I checked and saw that the prescription was signed either by the person or there was an electronic signature. I then confirmed the identity of the patient, but maintained confidentiality. I checked and saw that the dosage form were indicated, and then since this was not a Schedule 6, the doctor did not have to write the quantity with years and words. Hope that makes sense. Okay, next one. Mm, name of evidence, what it shows. Let's check. Link with behavioral statement, so forth, and that's it. Okay, let's check other things as well. 2443. So here, you are stating that you are applying this regulation. Okay, and then let's look at the quality of your annotation. Excuse me. The prescription is written in legible print. The prescription is signed, included. Okay, let's take that. Date of RX issued. Okay. Name of medication, instructions, number of repeats. Okay. Name, the date when this was done. Okay. The person who was supervising you. Okay. Patient, generic substitution. Aha. Okay. Some things that doctor's signature. So here, what your learning need was. Your learning need was to identify a fraudulent prescription. It was also to dispense the medication. What phase of dispensing is this applicable to? Is it phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3? In phase 1, you're doing a therapeutic evaluation of this medication. You're also checking the legality of prescription that you're doing. You're checking it using Regulation 33. Remember the regulation, the requirements for regulation. Remember how you annotate. When you annotate, you tell a story of what happened. How you tell a story is that I checked if the prescription was handwritten and saw that it was written in legible prints. I saw that the prescription was actually signed by the doctor. Ooh, there is the doctor's signature here. Here's it. Doctor's practice number. What did the doctor sign? A. Okay. So the doctor did not sign because if they did, where is their signature? Okay. So I please highlight where the doctor signed on the prescription because I don't see them signing. And look at their practice number. It's not clear. So these details are very important that they appear. If you can get this prescription, please show it. Yeah. And then next day, right? When you annotate, you are telling a story. How you tell a story is you give details. Okay. So the idea here is okay. It's a good idea in what you're trying to say, but it's not. Oh, okay, sorry. These are the doctor's. Eh, oh, these are the dispenser's details. Where's the doctor's signature? Oh, okay. Here, I see. It's fine. Excuse. Okay, okay. On this, with behavioral statement E. Behavior statement E 1.3 is about confidentiality. Then explain that you cover the patient details to apply with confidentiality. Here, don't just state name of patient dosage form. You explain, I checked and saw that this prescription included the name of the medication. Okay, I'm talking about this. Don't just state that name of medication, dosage form. This is not, this is low quality evidence annotation, the lack of a better word. How you improve this is tell a story. What's happening here? I checked the name of the medication. I checked and saw that the doctor included the dosage, frequency, and the quantity to be dispensed. This is the ICD-10 code which shows the diagnosis. It shows that this is an HIV positive patient. The repeats were 6 months. So it's clean. And then here you are speaking about, I mean, you also include that these are my details. So where are your details? I performed all the activities of the supervision. Where are your details? The dispenser's details, my name, and signature on the side. Okay, so this is fine. I got this corrected there. Patient asks for generic substitution due to price. Here, you can also link with another regulation. This is section 22F of the Medicines Act. It's about generic substitution. It says that you need to inform the patient about generic medicines. Since you included something about generic substitution, include this law and say that you refer to this law to learn what you should do when substituting generic medicines. And then you also add it there. Okay. And then next, so it's the name of the evidence, what it shows. And the behavioral statement is covered, and I think this is the application. Let's look at what you are saying here. Complying with professional requirement as shown in the text, and complying with requirement is an issued with insured with PPS as an intern. Okay, so this is good. It's good evidence. Approved. Next one. That's the name of evidence. Evidence 8. Okay. Okay. The name of the person insured. Okay. Insurance date. 31. Okay. This is good. Period. Okay, this is good. Good evidence. So behavior statement D is covered for. And then here, evidence I, the name of the evidence, what it covers. Let's look at, okay, behavioral statement E. So this is number 4 of the checklist. By the way, the checklist I'm using is this one. 1, 2, 3, and 4, so that you know exactly what you're covering. I take it this is the application here. Let's take how you apply it. Okay. Okay. Important according to the code of conduct, I read the rules to complete my learning successfully. You revised it. Okay. But how did you apply it? Description provide evidence and ensure that blacked out. Ah, excellent work. Excellent work. Good work. Okay. Hey, where's the switcher? So this is the end of the evidence. Okay. Schedule 6 medicines. There's no schedule 6 medicines. Okay. Now we get a problem here. Then we go to what the problem is. We're talking about. Identify. I will say gaps so that you know. In the behavioral statements, B, C, D, and E. In behavioral statement A, I saw that you included regulation 33 of the Medicines Act. So let's go back here. I want to keep on the key things. So here in the Pharmacy Act, the evidence that I saw you include, I think it was section 13 only. I would actually advise, so in pink will be your gaps. I would advise adding section, what's this section? Section 35A of the Pharmacy Act. In the Medicines and Related Substance Control Act, since you spoke about generic substitution, add section 22F of the Act. The recent scope of practice, you've included regulation 5 and 6. Add regulation 13 of the very same Act. That's GNR 4733. And then here, this regulation 13 will also be applicable for this one. Here, you did include this and this. Here, I would suggest you add section 1.4. Section 1.4 is about CPD. This is the easiest one to apply ethics because you completed a CPD activity. You can also include section 1.4, the well-being of the patient, which is about labeling medication. Okay. Okay, I will say in pink is what needs to be added. That's a plus sign, by the way. Sorry. Okay. And then the gaps now that I'm also seeing. Okay. The process. One. Phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Here you're supposed to perform a therapeutic evaluation. So here you can use the EM guidance to verify what B24 is. B24 is HIV. So you then include this to say that in phase 1, I performed a therapeutic evaluation by consulting the EM guidance. In phase 2 is when you pick and label. Because here, if we're verifying fraudulent prescriptions, you went on and dispensed. When you are dispensing, you pick and label the medication that you are dispensing. In phase 3 is when you are counseling the patient. So show pictures of yourself whereby you are counseling the patient. This is to validate the evidence. When we see your pictures here, we can see that you actually perform the activity. Okay? And then in your statement C, include regulation that like I included or dropped. And then the behavioral statement E, remember to include section 1.4 and section 1.1 so that you show that you actually applied ethics. In behavioral statement C, another way is to include like the fact that you actually paid your annual fees, because your annual fees last year, I think, was 711. So this is something to show that you applied the latest regulation. Find the latest regulation regarding annual fees, and then include this as well. The overall structure of the evidence is okay, but it's in the name. Remember, when applying the Fields Act, this is specified the exact act that you apply. So here, I think what I wanted to talk about is this one. This is regulation. This is chapter 13 of the Pharmacy Act, not chapter 2. Chapter 2 covers, okay, I believe, it covers more than just registration for intents. So it mentioned that it's in chapter 2, but it's section 13. And then proof for A. In the Pharmacy Act, remember to add section 35A of the Pharmacy Act. Keeping abreast with the latest regulations. Okay. Right, I think I did explain most of this. So this is, yeah, I think this will be the end of it. But overall, I would say this is good work. This is good work.